The reading this morning is from John chapter 10, verses 1 to 18. If you're reading that on the church Bible, that's on page 1076. Very truly, I tell you, Pharisees, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in the other way, is a thief and a robber. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. But they will never follow a stranger. In fact, they will run away from him because they do not recognize a stranger's voice. Jesus used this figure of speech, but the Pharisees did not understand what he was telling them. Therefore, Jesus said again, "Very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who have come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Then the wolf attacks the flock and scatters it. The man runs away because he is a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not of this sheepfold. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock and one shepherd. The reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father." The word of the Lord.
Thank you so much, Naomi, for reading that. Good morning, everyone. It's really, really brilliant to be here with you. As you can probably tell by the accent, I'm not from around these parts. I live near Stansted Airport, so it's actually easier to get here than it is to get to London sometimes with the amount of traffic. My son's at university at Wembley, and I've been coming to Scotland for many, many years. I think I was here, Make Poverty History, all those years ago. I spoke at that, which was amazing. But I'm staying in the Premier Inn next door, and all my years of coming to Scotland, I've never had a deep fried Mars bar. And I just wondered, out of, because I've never asked this, who thinks that I really should, before the end of today, have a deep fried Mars bar? Just put your hands up. Wow, that's not very many of you, to be fair. Who thinks that in the name of Jesus, I should never go near a deep fried Mars bar in my life? Well, I think the no's have it, to be honest. I'm quite relieved. And but it is brilliant to be here with you. My name's Patrick. I'm self-employed. I've run a number of charities, and what I do now is actually spend a lot of my time going outside of the Christian bubble, speaking in businesses, speaking in schools, police, all sorts of places. I really wanted to be a Christian voice in society, so I spend a lot of my time doing that, which I absolutely love. I also spend a lot of time speaking in churches and doing stuff, particularly on the areas of mental health online as well, so run courses, which again, if you're interested in, I can tell you about. It all started for me a couple of years ago. I was sitting in my study, and like most Christian leaders, I have hundreds of Christian books. And I was looking all around my lovely Christian books, and I suddenly realized I don't have one book I would give to my non-Christian mates. I have some evangelistic books. I have some books that are meant to be for non-Christians but are full of jargon. I have books that try to get them converted by the end, but I don't have anything that mentions faith but is quite gentle. The other thing that I observed was about 9 years ago now, I had a breakdown. Life just got too hard. Everything caved at once. And when I had my breakdown, everyone was trying to give me a book to read. and I couldn't even read a paragraph, not alone a book. And so I thought to myself, me and my precious friend Liza, we thought to ourselves, what would it look like to write something for people outside of the Christian bubble, if you like, for people inside the church to give to their friends, to the dads who I watched my son play football with, to the mums at the school gate, to friends that you've known for years, that mentions faith, but it's gentle. And what, I wrote it in a different style. I wrote it in short stories and poems and tools, you know, like if you can't get to sleep, what do you do? Just to really benefit people's mental health. So I wrote this book called Brighter Days, 12 Steps to Strengthen Your Well-Being. And we put it out into the world, not really expecting what would happen next. I had a school ring me up saying, I'll take 150 copies, please. We want to give it to the whole of Year 11 and the whole of Year 11's parents. And then what we'd love you to do is come in and talk to all of them. And we'll disguise it as an awards evening. Genius. And so I spoke to 500 of these parents and these kids. And then I found out that Lloyd's Bank were using it in their staff. There's a picture there in a prison. Actually, I'm back there on Friday, not because I've been naughty, but I'm back there, I'm speaking to a women's prison, and the women in the women's prisons are both victims and perpetrators. Victims because they've been abused and domestic violence, and perpetrators because they got involved in violence. And Nina Hussein there, who you can see signing a book, she reads the news for ITV, and we're really close friends, and we go in there and we do book signings, and we do meet the author events. We've found out they're being used in chemotherapy units. Churches are buying them and leaving them in coffee shops around mental health awareness days and weeks and stuff like that. So I'm really keen that they get out into the world. So if you want one for yourself, please take one, but please take one for someone who may be struggling. And it's not about making money for us. We try and do so many deals. We just want to get it into people's hands who may be a little bit lonely. When someone comes up to you and shows you a page and says, I'm still alive because of that page, you swallow your pride and you just mention it to people. So that's what we would love to do. And I'm happy to sign it for any friend or that's going through a tough time. They're just at the back. This passage I found incredibly challenging as I was asked to speak on it. And as Naomi's already read the first bit, I'm just going to think about what is the role of a shepherd. Now, the context to this passage is that the religious leaders had been talking about the man who had been born blind. And Jesus is explaining, as he does in John, who he is, and they're just not getting it. So this is, I think, the fourth of the great I am sayings, statements that Jesus is revealing himself. And he reveals himself as a shepherd. A shepherd does three things. It protects, it nurtures, and he guides his sheep. Sheep were valuable, especially to the Romans, due to their wool. Sheep were always in subject to danger. The shepherd had to be the protector. But he does this by knowing them. He leads them. He doesn't drive them. I was doing a session for police chaplaincy, actually, a week ago. And we're doing some feedback, and this guy stood up and he said, I was driven to do well at school. I was driven to read, so I hate reading and I'm not going to buy your book. I was driven to do this. And I realized in 60 seconds he used the word driven. And I said to him, you know, you've used the word driven so many times. And it's interesting how we try and get people to do stuff. Been doing some writing recently about power. And 4 types of power that's often talked about. Power over, which is often about dominating and controlling. But there's also power within that we find through the Holy Spirit. Power to, where we try and empower others to be everything that they can be. And power with, when we come together on a common cause to see change. Bruce the theologian said this, that in his youth, some shepherds in the Scottish Highlands not only called their individual sheep by name, but claimed that the individual sheep would recognize its own name and respond to it. The shepherd would know their individual markings and their characteristics. In fact, in World War I in Jerusalem, soldiers stole some sheep whilst the shepherd had fallen asleep, and they were being driven up the hill. There is no way the shepherd could have got them back from the soldiers. But what he simply did is he stood there and he called them by name, and they all returned. And the soldiers could do nothing about it because they knew their master's voice. They knew the shepherd's voice. Comes to verse 7, it says this. Then Jesus said again, very truly, I tell you, I'm the gate for the sheep. All have come before me, thieves, robbers, but the sheep have not listened to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters from me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief only comes to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life, and life to the full. And I think what's happening here is the Pharisees are still not getting it. And in verse 7, he says that now he's talking about him being the gate for the sheep. Now, in those days, the pens were the only entrance. So the shepherds used to lay down themselves across the entrance to keep the sheep safe and the wolves out. The wolves and the thieves would have to jump over the fence to get to the sheep. And then in verse 10, he makes this amazing statement, which is easy just to gloss over. He says, I have come that they may have life and have life to the full. It doesn't say, I have come so they will be constantly and utterly worn out and exhausted half of the time trying to do things for me. The abundant life that he's talking about is this, I think, is this like contentment. It's this contentment in who we are and who he is. And contentment, think about it, and happiness are really different things. Happiness is fleeting, right? It can come and go. Contentment feels something so much deeper because we know that life hits us hard sometimes. I think it's Rick Warren that says that life is always blessing and battles. Railway tracks, good stuff, difficult stuff. Rarely is life always fantastic. Rarely is life always awful. The two run alongside each other so much of the time. And then those verses in Philippians, which give us all encouragement, where Paul is talking about all the challenges he has had. And he says, doesn't he? He says, I have learned to be content in all things. If the Apostle Paul has to learn to be content in all things, it gives us all hope, right? Contentment is what we're wanting, that God is wanting us to know who we are, so we can be content in all circumstances. He goes on, verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. The hired hand is not the shepherd and does not own the sheep. So when he sees the wolf come in, he abandons the sheep, runs away, and then the wolf attacks the flock and it scatters. The man runs away because he's a hired hand and cares nothing for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me and I know the Father, and I will lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that are not in this pen. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and I will be one flock and one shepherd. Again, here we see that actually hired hands were there because what used to happen is a shepherd used to look after around 50 to 100 sheep. So when you get over 100 sheep, you need to hire in someone to help you out. But of course, the person you're hiring in to help you out doesn't know the sheep like you do, doesn't care about the sheep like you do. So when the wolves come, when they're attacked, they're the first ones to leave. And he's again referring to the Pharisees. Jesus talks about the sheep that aren't in the pen, the sheep that are different, referring to the Gentiles. And sometimes sheep were put into different groups to care for, but they were always part of one flock. As I read this over and over again, I start thinking to myself, do I hear God's voice? Am I the sheep that hears God's voice? Is God leading me, or am I driving myself out of the pen? Or am I willing to stay in the pen with a hired hand who doesn't really care that much if I get attacked or not? Am I allowing God to speak to me and to lead me? Verse 16, they too listen to my voice, and they will be one flock and one shepherd. Do I know God's voice? And I come to the conclusion that actually I am so preoccupied trying to do this crazy thing called life. And I want it to be perfect. I think it comes from a good place. I don't think I'm a nasty person. I want my kids to do well. I want my home to be good. I want to be a good husband. I want to do my job really well. But I'm striving for perfectionism. That voice of society that says it has to be perfect is having a real effect on me. Now, I have a dog. Here's a picture of my dog coming up here. Thank you for everyone that went, I appreciate that. And my dog is called Hope. That is a really stupid name for a dog. Imagine my poor neighbours. For the first 6 months, I was trying to train Hope. It was my job. They literally heard me shouting out. They thought me and my wife were getting divorced because I would literally shout out at the top of my voice randomly throughout the day, "No hope, no hope, no hope." No hope, no hope. I'm like, wow, what's going on next door? In fact, they came round when I shouted out, "Diane, I think I've lost hope." She's gone over the fence. And so I take Hope for a walk most mornings, and Hope has one thing on her mind, and it's squirrels. And I think squirrels, I don't know about you, I feel like squirrels are a bit arrogant. They're a bit like, "Come on in. Come and have me. Go on and see what you could do." And so Hope is there. She literally let off the lead and she goes charging off to try and get the squirrel. And the squirrel literally runs around the field about 6 or 7 times, sits on the fence, coming in, then gets off the fence, then goes around the field, then goes straight up the tree. Hope comes back to me completely and utterly exhausted. And I think that's me. I'm trying to hit something that's perfect, a perfect life, and it's just not possible. I'm not listening to the voice because I'm preoccupied in trying to make everything perfect. And as I started thinking about this, I really wanted to earth it, because I really like sermons that earth it in reality. So I thought, how does this really happen for me on a day-to-day basis? And I thought, this perfectionism thing, it reveals to me in catastrophic thinking. Does anyone ever do this? You've got something wrong with you, you've got a headache, you go to Dr. Google for a diagnosis. I'm like, "Diane, I've got a brain tumor." She's like, "You haven't got a brain tumor, take some paracetamol." I go to worst case scenario. Or ever so occasionally, me and my wife argue. I'm sure you guys don't do that. It's very, very, very occasionally, most days. And we will have an argument and I'll be like, "That's it, it's the end of our marriage." And she'll be like, "We've been married 30 years, I'll make the tea, it's fine." And or your boss says to you, "Can I just have a word with you before you go home today?" What's the first thing that goes into your head when that happens? "Oh, he's going to give me a really encouraging talk." And I'm so happy. But with catastrophic thinking, we try and work out worst case scenario. We've got to get it all perfect. We've got to get it all sorted. I've got to drive myself. Second thing, I'm mind reading. And as someone that does so much public speaking, I do this all the time. I look out, and even though there's so many of you, I will try and look around as much as I possibly can, which is quite hard when you've got a balcony and lights. And I'll try and get eye contact with as many of you as can, even the people in the back row. And I'll be looking around, and in my head, I'll be thinking, "Oh my goodness, what do they think of me right now?" It's not looking good, to be honest, and I think I might get ready to go. But it reveals itself in unrealistic expectations. I should, I must, I ought. Rigid belief systems. We start overcompensating in our behavior. Excessive checking. Who rereads their sent items and their text messages? Receiving feedback's hard. We take it so personally. We're constantly people-pleasing, acting differently around different sets of people, needing constant reassurance. This little phrase has really helped me, and it's from the French philosopher. It says this: "Don't let perfect be the enemy of good." Even for the shepherds, life was unpredictable. Life is unpredictable. The shepherds, crossing rivers was hard. Sheep would often get washed away and they'd have to go and get after them. Heavy rainfall, sheep could go and get washed away down the mountainside, and robbers would be successful. There was blistering heat. There was snow in the winter. Life is unpredictable, but when we're in that pressure point, can we hear his voice? And the reason why he is the most reliable voice is because he was the shepherd who laid down his life for his sheep. Jesus longs to speak to us, but sometimes we need to let go. Sometimes I think it's about allowing him into every aspect of our lives. And the last two bits in this passage, the reason my Father loves me is I'm going to lay down my life, only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. The command I receive from my Father. There's a writer and a mystic called Brendan Manning. You may have heard of him. Not Bernard Manning, he did the turkeys, not to get them confused. Brendan Manning was an amazing author, and he had this thing. He said, when you get to heaven, what do you think the first thing that God is going to say to you is going to be? Good question. It's not going to be, I wish you tried harder. It's not going to be, tell me about all your accomplishments. It's going to be, did you realize how much I loved you? Did you realize how much I loved you? We have a Savior that walks alongside. Shepherds would always walk alongside. Sometimes at night time they'd go behind just to keep the stragglers in the way to the pens, but normally they'd walk alongside, and that's what our Savior wants to do. With all our anxiety, with all our pain, he walks alongside. In the words of the great theologian Winnie the Pooh, he says this, don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend. Not everyone wants to be fixed, but people do want to be loved. And sometimes with the great intentions of the world, we want to jump in and fix. I want to finish by telling you this story. I've told this story many times. It was a very precious story to me. Many years ago now, the charity that I was working with, XLP, we had a visit from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. I hope you caught that name as it dropped there. And I was so excited because over the years I'd hosted prime ministers normally a week before the election and all sorts of people and famous people but Archbishop, I was generally really excited. The challenge is we used to have these mobile youth centres that we used to take on to different estates around London to reach some of the hardest to reach young people from some of the most chaotic backgrounds that you'll ever hear about. So Desmond Tutu was coming at 10 o'clock in the morning. Now at 10 o'clock in the morning, most of the young people that we were working with were either in school or in bed. So I'm really stressed. So I say to my youth workers, get round the estate and tell them Desmond Tutu's coming. So they go round the estate and they go, Desmond Tutu's coming, and they're like, who? And I was like, oh man, you're joking me. I said, tell them, have they heard of Nelson Mandela? They're like, have you heard of Nelson Mandela? They're like, yeah, of course I've heard of Nelson Mandela. I said, say to them, he's the next best thing. He's the next best thing, and he's got bling, and you're going to love him. He's going to be fantastic. And so in the end, these guys, they turned up more out of respect for us than knowing who Desmond Tutu was. And he was coming with Mary Robertson, the former president of Ireland. And we didn't bother explaining who she was. And so he jumps out of his taxi, and you know how lovely old people grab your hand, and then they don't let go for ages. So he grabbed my hand, and we literally walked hand in hand through the estate. All the kids were on the bus, laughing their heads off. And so he got on the bus and he starts to talk to our young people. And he says this one thing. He says, I don't really want to say much. I'm here to listen. I was like, oh, come on, give me a break. I was like, I'm talking about Nelson Mandela and all that stuff. And no, I'm here to listen. And so he listens. He listens as they talk about what it's like to see their dad beat up their mum and feel powerless to do anything about it. Seeing friends, neighbours who've been shot and never been offered counselling or therapy. Feeling like sometimes there's no hope for this future. Parents working long hours, still struggling to make ends meet. Having responsibility to look after their younger brothers and sisters. Temporary dads that come into your life and your mum wants them to be your dad, but you don't want them to be your dad, but you don't want to upset your mum. Afterwards, me and Desmond Tutu, we had to go and speak at an event together, which was highly intimidating. And he stood up and he said these words. There were moments visiting XLP, you felt you being tugged on your heartstring and you were very close to tears. Looking at these young people who could have been going down a cul-de-sac. And then they realized what incredible potential they had when given the chance to blossom. Each one of these kids is a masterpiece. God doesn't create rubbish. Each one of us is special to God. Your name is engraved on his hands. Some of us look like accidents. You might want to have a little look around. No, don't do that. That's bad, Patrick. But the most important thing you'll ever do is to remind people that they're special to God. On the bus, he went and he took hold of this kid's hand. And you know, there's always a kid in your youth group, you're like, any other kid but that kid would have been good. You know, it was 10 o'clock, he'd already smoked a lot of weed that morning. And he grabbed hold of his hand and he looked him in the eye and he went, I tell you what you are. You are a VSP. Very special person. You're made in the image of God. You have the potential to change this world. And I felt like he was talking like God. He was saying what God says over you and over me. It was his voice. It's the most clear that I've ever felt that I've heard God's voice. And this kid, you know, he didn't really know what to say. And it wasn't one of those amazing stories that you read about. He suddenly got saved and everything was wonderful. He cut his hair a little bit. He stopped smoking weed for 2 days, which was great. And got his CV a little bit sorted out. Went around the estate going, Desmond Tutu spoke to me. Most of them, you know, still didn't really know who Desmond Tutu was. In fact, a load of them were like, it was really nice of Trevor McDonald to come down and to hang out with us. But then, me and Desmond, we were on our own just for a little bit. And he turned to me and he said something, and this is the bit I've repeated hundreds of times. And when I repeated it lots of times, I lied. You're thinking, we're never inviting you back into our church ever again. I said that Desmond Tutu said to me, Patrick, XLP, which is a charity that I was the founder of, make God smile. XLP loved it. They put it in all their newsletters and sent it everywhere. He never said that. He went, Patrick, you need to know that you make God smile. It's always about the charity, right? It's always about everything else. And you know, when I was thinking about this morning, I was thinking, you've probably heard so many brilliant talks, and you'll go away from here and maybe you'll remember some of it. I just want you to hear the voice of God, and I really think the voice of God for you is you make God smile. Listen to his voice. Let's not be driven. Let's be led. Let's be led by a Savior that loves us and cares for us. Let's be people who look out for each other. I'm going to show you this video, and then I'm well and truly done. Hopefully I'll get time to chat to some of you at the end. But who's seen The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse? Has anyone seen this? These books have sold millions. I mean, literally millions. And the story is that Charlie Mackesy, the artist, he is best friend with a guy called Bear Grylls. And once he asked Bear Grylls, what's the bravest thing you've ever done? Bear Grylls has climbed Everest twice. He's swam in rivers with crocodiles and eaten some weird stuff. He's an action man. He was in the SOS. And Bear Grylls said, the bravest thing that I've ever done is say the word help. And so he started to draw. And he drew those 4 characters, the boy, the mole, the fox, and the horse. Each character represents a part of you and a part of me. The boy represents the part of me and you that's inquisitive. We've got lots of questions. I just don't get it, and I don't understand why this is happening. Yeah, I can relate to that. The mole represents the part of us that's enthusiastic, but a little bit greedy. We just want more cake. The fox represents the part of us that's been hurt in the past, and so we always follow on behind. We want to be part of things, but we're not quite sure, and it's tough at the moment. And then the horse represents the part of us, the strongest part, our soul, that says, you're loved, you can do this. The shepherd laid down his life for his friends, so we're not driven, but we're led. Let's check this out.
said it almost. Snow, brother, I'll bet it'll go. Shadow with blood in my nose. I had it almost.
I think you believe in me more than I do.
You'll catch up. Life is difficult, but you are loved.
Don't go. Your heart let me,
What do you want to be when you grow up?
but I'm hardly still proud.
Kind. The fox never really speaks.
I often feel I've nothing interesting to say.
Being honest is always interesting.
It was having a moment and oh, I had it almost. We had it almost.
What's the bravest thing you've ever said?
Help. Asking for help isn't giving up. It's refusing to give up. I can fly. But I stopped because it made the universe jealous.
Whether you can fly or not.
Always remember, you're enough, just as you are.
The big things feel out of control. Focus on what you love. This storm will pass.
That's why we're here. Isn't it?
The cake.
To love. And be loved.
You know, sometimes your mind plays tricks on you. It can tell you you're no good, that it's all hopeless. But I've discovered this. You are loved and important, and you bring to this world things that no one else can. So hold on.